Hello there, people and listeners of the Hungry Podcast. Today, I'm absolutely thrilled to welcome John Holman to the podcast. John is the co-founder of Craft Gin Club, who are on a mission to build the world's biggest direct-to-consumer spirits brand. Craft Gin Club has over 450,000 subscribers, which they deliver gin boxes to every single month. Compounding annual growth rates of 82% and retail sales of 27 million. My mum is a big fan of yours, John. So I'm super excited to enjoy your company today, mate. Thank you.
Good, great to be here, and great to hear that your mother is a fan and one of those 450,000 customers we've had during the years we've been in business.
No, for sure. And actually, it's kind of perfect timing because I actually last week interviewed Sarah Willingham for the second time on the podcast.
Amazing.
So we'll definitely explore that. But for listeners, Sarah's a lead investor in Craft Gin Club. But where I want to start is MBA and Madrid, and actually the Beckham documentary that I was watching last night, and a quote that you wrote or I've taken from an article you read. You wrote, I think, and you said, "Getting on the pitch is the best way to learn. You can spend weeks and months planning so that every new part of your business you launch is as perfect as you think it can be. But really, you don't learn whether it's right for your market until you actually launch it, test it, gather feedback, and continually tweak it." Now, I was watching the Beckham documentary last night, and I was thinking, you almost have, there's two types of MBAs. There's the business MBA you do in Madrid, which the parallel to football would be like the training ground, like Fergie training Beckham, Carrington, the best physios, the best sauna, the best spa, etc. You can learn a lot from doing that, but then you've actually got to take the leap and jump on the pitch, and there's a myriad of lessons you'll learn there, which you can only actually learn by being on the pitch. The big one with the Beckham documentary is when he gets the red card, I think in 1988, potentially, like his whole career is a car crash. He learns from that and then comes back and he has the famous free kick against Greece. Those are the lessons you can only learn on the pitch. What I'd love to start with is, what are the two salient pieces of wisdom you took from your MBA in Madrid that you apply daily at Craft Gin Club? As the first part.
That's a really, really good question. I think perhaps taking a step back and sort of walking you through the steps that led me to do an MBA. So my first career was technology. So, not in business, not in booze, in something completely different. And I spent the first part of my career working as a software engineer, having graduated with a degree in electrical engineering. It was the noughties, so if you could turn a computer on, a good job was there to be had. And I think during that career, I got a taste for independent working. I ended up working as a freelancer or a contractor, moving from client to client, 6 months here, a year there, which I think aligned itself to an ambition to have a career that sort of, I guess, lent itself to a degree of independence. So I wasn't an entrepreneur, but I wasn't working for the man, if you like. I was somewhere in between. But I ended up where I would say all good software engineers go to die in London, working in the city, writing reasonably well paid, but probably quite boring financial software, and decided that there was perhaps a bit more to life, and I wanted a new challenge and a new direction. And business school, I guess, gave me both the space to get out of London for a year to think about what it is that I wanted to do, but also that sort of educational framework that I think is useful, right? I don't think it's necessary to be an entrepreneur, far from it, but certainly it had its usage. But I think Madrid itself was an experience that existed much more outside of the classroom than it did inside of the classroom, and I think that lends itself into some of the things we think about at Craft Gin Club. So our time in Madrid was great. I met my co-founder there, so that was a really, really important part of the journey. I think an important reason why you go to a business school is so you can network and meet people, and hopefully some happy accidents will come out of that. But I think what an MBA also forces you to do is to work with people that you perhaps ordinarily wouldn't work with or haven't worked with previously in your career. So my career was quite myopic before that. Lots of software dudes, they usually were dudes, all of a similar mindset and bent, I would say. So being thrown into project work with people from a variety of backgrounds, both professionally, but also their personal backgrounds, where they're from, their family life, all that stuff was the whole melting pot of people. And you had to make that work. And I think making that work is difficult. It requires a degree of compromise and learning as a leader when to compromise and when to allow people space to make mistakes. And I think we bring all of that into Craft Gin Club. So we try to hire good people, and by good people, I mean nice people, pleasant people. We want a really collegiate environment at work where we operate, I guess, what I would always try and describe as an idiocracy. So it's not my idea that counts, or it's not the most senior person who's the most senior person who is around the table. The idea that counts. It's the best idea that should count. It's the best idea that should win. And trying to create that environment where that can work is definitely something I've taken away from my time in Spain and into daily life at Craft Gin Club. And the other thing is Madrid, and Madrid as a city and how it celebrates, I think, food and production, and how it cares about where things that go into your glass or on your plate come from, how they're made. That is the Spanish food scene, right? It's very ingredient led. And of course, we fell in love with, as being good students, we fell in love with sort of Spanish style gin and tonic bars while we were in Madrid. As you can imagine, there was lots of time to study, but also lots of time to play. And Madrid's a great city to do that. The nightlife is insane. And we caught that sort of very early gin trend whilst we were in Madrid. Everywhere you went, cafes, bars, restaurants at that time were all serving that sort of premiumized version of a gin and tonic, the big bulbous glass, the ice, interesting garnish. And doing it in a way that I think was really cognizant of the spirit they were serving, making sure that they were telling stories about the person that made the drink, making sure that they matched garnish and mixer with the gin, and all of that was quite new to me, and that stuck with me. And that sort of thirst for quality, if you like, and thirst for knowledge about what we're drinking is one of the, I guess, kernels behind Craft Gin Club, and it's something we take forth into our business every day through the content we produce, the magazines that we write, the stories that we tell, and the producers we support.
I love what you said there, and I think this culture piece we're gonna definitely come on to, because I think that's absolutely fascinating. Completely agree. Like I've just got back from Lisbon about 2-3 weeks ago, and was in Valencia this year, and I think just everything with food and drink in those in like the sort of the Mediterranean countries is just at a slower pace. Like people in the UK, we just like to just absolutely wank it and just batter things quickly, so you don't actually appreciate the moment. And I think one of the things that Craft Gin Club did or is doing is it's taking that European way of consuming food and drink and bringing it into the home, which is the theatre of the glass, the provenance of the gin. It's a slower experience, and I think it's delicious. So just quickly, so you said like kind of the learnings from business school in Madrid were more like working with different divergent people, divergent cultures, the thirst for knowledge. Back to this kind of on the pitch versus off the pitch. So was there anything you learned from the actual classrooms that you applied to the business?
Hey guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Honestly, means the absolute world to me. I'd be so grateful for a small favour, please. It is so hard growing a YouTube channel. It is so bloody hard. If you please enjoy these videos, just click the subscribe button. more subscribers equals bigger guests equals better conversations, and hopefully you can learn more as you build your food and drink brand. Thank you so much.
I think there is, and every single day, what an MBA gives you is a good breadth of understanding. So I can now have an intelligent conversation with my CFO about finance. I can have maybe a semi-intelligent conversation with my CMO about marketing. I can talk with the technology director about technology, and all of these aspects of business, whether it's finance, whether it's logistics, whether it's marketing, you study to some degree, and that gives you a basic grounding and a kind of common lexicon that allows you to go out and have intelligent conversations with people that know far more about the subject than I ever will. And I think that's a really important part of the classroom experience. I think above and beyond that, in all honesty, the learning started after graduation, and the serious learnings about how you go about building a business, how you go about building successful teams, only really started post MBA. But I think the journey through school, as well as introducing me to some great people, helping me understand how to work with people, giving me that grounding, also opened the door for that career change. And I'm probably a person that thinks quite logically, but also quite linearly. So I build things up from the ground up. So that kind of first career, school, enabler of a change, a new career. I didn't go out and start a business straight away. After business school, I went and worked for a venture builder in London, started a business on their behalf for investors, which was the next, I guess, part of that learning journey that I was building for myself. So great time in Madrid, took lots away from it. People often ask, could you have built your business without the MBA? And the answer is definitely yes. But when I sit back on my rocking chair as a 90-year-old man, hopefully, and looking back in life, it's definitely an experience I wouldn't want to have missed. And it's an experience I would recommend to anyone who's fortunate enough to fold that into their journey. Lots of fun.
I think it's a guy I interviewed a couple of weeks ago. He actually dropped out of uni and he called it his own personal MBA. He's got his DTC mushroom coffee brand. I'm actually drinking it now. It's like a coffee replacement. It's really good. But he basically said he learned everything himself. And the more I think about it, I think it is like the football analogy. The two are intertwined. Like the more you spend in the classroom or on the training ground, the better you are on the pitch. But ultimately, when you're on the pitch is where the real lessons come from. But the two are inextricably intertwined. I'd love to go into the first couple of years. I always think that's the hardest part of the business. I think some people call it like the trough of sorrow, where you're just like, you just feel, it's quite a morose way of saying it, but it's like you're just in the trenches. It's revoltingly hard. I'm in this moment now with this podcast. But what are some of the really painfully hard lessons in that get into that first 400K, I think in your first year, like that you could only learn by doing? And what would you do differently if you had to face those again?
I think we got a lot of things wrong in those first couple of years, but we also got a lot of things right. And I think it's important that when we look back, we take the time to sort of pat ourselves on the back a little bit, because we worked really, really hard and built a business and made loads of mistakes along the way, but we persevered, and I would say that's the first and most important lesson is as you go through those really tough early years, and when you think that perhaps there's no point to the journey, is just to keep going. So when the going gets tough, keep going is a truism, but it's absolutely right. And I think we did a good job of that in the first couple of years. I was working full-time job when we launched this business. So it was kind of a side hustle, if you like, if you use the modern phrase. So it took up a lot of time. I think I wasn't quite prepared for how much time it would end up taking up, but very quickly it became all I did outside of my job. And I think that experience of putting in the hours and doing almost every role in the company as you build the company makes me a better manager or leader, 7-8 years down the line, because you've sat in those roles and you've done those roles. I've burnt the midnight oil doing customer service tickets. I've been to the warehouse and built boxes. I've generated labels. I've built Facebook campaigns. We did it all ourselves in the early days, and that was really tough. But it did allow us to scale a business without access to capital. Frankly, we bootstrapped the business from the ground up. We didn't go out and raise money early, and that's allowed us to keep control of our own business over the years. So loads and loads of hard work, lots of mistakes, and I guess learning not to worry about the mistakes too much and keep going. And getting hands-on, and there's no substitute for getting hands-on in your business and learning the jobs from first principles, right? Actually getting your hands on and doing it, and that helps you later on in the business as well. So really tough first couple of years, but really good as well. That the wind was in our sails, and I think quite often one of the questions you get asked by friends that perhaps would like to start their own business, go on an entrepreneurial journey, is this point of having an idea or having that light bulb moment, which I think is great if one comes along, but I think for most businesses that isn't the case. And what we did, and I guess what I would recommend others to do, is think about how you can have the wind at your back or the wind in your sails, and make sure that you're playing in markets that are growing. And it's so much easier to build a business in a market that's growing than in a market that's stagnant or declining, even if you don't get the right product market fit to begin with. If the market you're playing in is a good one, I think you'll get there a lot quicker. And that proved the case to be for us. We were in the right place at the right time with gin. By design, but still, there's a good degree of fortune in there. But you quite often make your own luck by seeing which way the wind is blowing and getting in front of it.
I interviewed the founder of, do you know Who Gives a Crap, like the toilet paper? Mm-hmm. Like an Aussie brand.
Bamboo toilet paper.
Yeah, no, they're an Aussie brand, I think. But the really interesting guy, I interviewed him last week, and he was saying that he does a lot of surfing. He's like, you've got to be in the water to catch the wave. And I think it's very analogous to what you're saying about having the wind in your sails. And I want to kind of talk about that, because I think anyone can have a business idea. And I think in food and drink, it's like every food and drink brand now wants to have a functional drinks brand to launch into a supermarket. Which is great, but it means that there almost needs to be instead of thinking, okay, what's our USP? It's almost taking one step back and being like, where are the waves? Because there's no point in having the best surfboard if there's no bloody waves in the water, or having the best boat if there's no wind behind you. And I think it's a really interesting thing to think about. So how did you know gin? You sat with the other John in Madrid. The sun's pouring down your neck. You're having a lovely G&T. How did you sense and feel that this movement or this wave was beginning to come, or these winds were beginning to come? Because I really love how founders can have that intuition. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think the seed was sown in Madrid, and Spain really is the sort of ground zero, if you like, for the...
Sorry to interrupt. What year was this, just to get some context?
We were in Madrid 2009, 2010.
Okay, cool. Sorry, I just wanted to understand that. Yeah.
So that was sort of the ground zero of the ginaissance, if you like, the reinvention of gin as a category, which for a long time in the UK been quite a sleepy category. It become quite an uncool drink. I think growing up, vodka was seen as the sort of spirit du jour. It was quite cool. There was vodka bars. That was the wide spirit of choice, and gin had become quite sleepy, quite forgotten. There was a market that was dominated by 3 or 4 big brands. And what happened was that Spain became this sort of spark of reinvention of gin through first of all, the premiumization of the serve. So the big bulbous Spanish style G&T goblet, lots of ice, and then lots of theatre with the serve. So, paired garnish, often treated quite nicely, if that's not the right word, but there'd be tweaks of interest in the garnish, whether it was a twirl or a scrape or setting things alight or whatever it might be. Lots of ice, interesting garnish, really premium serve that people, I guess, discovered on their holidays to Spain and began to bring back to the UK. And I guess something else was happening alongside that growing consumer interest in gin that I think we were aware of just because of our, and I'm talking about John and myself now, that as co-founders, we sort of bond over a mutual enjoyment of the finer things in life, if that makes sense. So whiskey, gin, wine, all things we enjoy discovering and enjoy talking about. So we were aware that something interesting was going on in the UK market from a supply side. So the guys at Sipsmith Distillery in London, they became the first new distillery in London to get a license to distill in, something like 200 years. And the statute books still carried legislative legislation that prevented, and I'm trying to choose the words carefully, it prevented a distillery opening up and having a license to distill unless that distillery was of a certain size, i.e. big. So it was laws that were written in to stop the kind of backstreet bathtub gin producers during the sort of Victorian gin craze. And that actually done a good job of keeping innovation out of craft distilling market in the UK. So the whole kind of revolution in craft beer and craft spirits that had happened in the US market had happened in beer in the UK, but hadn't happened in spirits yet. And this was the reason why. So Sipsmith managed to get this law changed, and they opened up and they built a very successful business that they eventually sold. But on the back of that, quite quickly then lots and lots of small distilleries were coming to market for the first time in a long time. Quite often actually with a view of making whiskey and aged spirits, realizing that, that takes a long time to lay down the spirit. You've got to pay the bills in the meantime, and turning their hand to gin, most notably, as a category that is quick and relatively inexpensive to make. You can bring a gin to market very quickly. It doesn't need aging, but also lends itself to this idea of craft, because every gin differentiates from every other gin based on provenance, based on flavor profile, based on ingredients, and more latterly based on brand and looks. But that really suited these small distillers that were coming to market, because they could bring something that was, of them, of the area, of their history, whatever it might be. They could find their angle, unlike, say, vodka, where, frankly, they all taste much of a muchness. So really interesting that as the consumer was getting switched on to gin as a category, and as that was being driven by the bars and Fever Tree in particular that were coming to market strongly in the UK, and that whole premiumization of gin, at the same time, the door was opening to lots and lots of new, interesting small producers, which is a bit of a perfect storm. And the challenge that the kind of home drinker had, and most home drinkers buy most of their booze in the supermarket, is that you couldn't access all of this interesting product in your weekly shop. And that was the kind of nub of the business idea, really, was how could we build some kind of platform to connect all of these small distillers with the home enthusiast, of which more and more were coming into the market, driven by this premiumization trend. And the third trend we weaved into the business idea, if you like, the third wind that was in our sails, was this growing consumer appetite or interest or acceptance of buying things on subscription. So people like Birchbox and HelloFresh blazing a trail for that industry. And, we decided to use that vehicle, the idea of a subscription box or a club, to connect these enthusiastic gin drinkers with all these small producers that are coming to market. It was good timing.
I have just discovered a secret weapon. Please, please, please don't tell anyone. This secret weapon helps you get listed, stay listed, and most importantly, grow. This secret weapon is being used by absolutely banging brands like Bold Bean Co., Perfect Head, Neat, Trip, and Cheeky Panda. No wonder they're absolutely smashing it. But look, are you ready to get your mitts on this secret weapon and absolutely smash it too? I am thrilled, so thrilled to announce our brand new podcast partner, North Star. What is North Star, I hear you thinking? North Star is a monthly subscription to an online platform giving you access to category data, category insights, anytime, any place, anywhere. It's basically the Netflix for challenger brands. It levels the playing field. Why do you need category data? Well, the first thing is making your pitch speak the buyers and retailers language is so important. It's going to help you unlock more listings, unlock deeper distribution with existing clients, back the right NPD, and actually understand how your competition is performing. But the even better news, are you ready to rock and roll at your next range review? You no longer need to hire a full-time category manager. Instead, just parachute in North Star when your next Waitrose, Sainsbury's or Tesco range reviews coming up. They're your outsourced in-house partner. Save money. Their team will come in. They'll help you prep, plan and smash your next range review. I'm so excited to be partnering with North Star. Check them out in the episode description below. Delighted to announce the extension of our partnership with the wonderful Billy and Paul from Mackenzie Jones, but even more exciting, they have just launched a brand new brand as part of Mackenzie Jones called MKJ Ignite. MKJ Ignite is a recruitment firm which specializes full shebang, focus entirely on challenge brand space. They work with some incredible brands, Lucky Saint, Goodrays, Purdy and Fig, Hunt and Gather, and Real Superfoods. They can support with your hiring needs across all levels, top to bottom, junior entry-level jobs, all the way through up to MD and CEO level. So if you're looking for a field sales stomper, a sales wizard, an ops guru, a supply chain sensei, you name it, MKJ Ignite can help you out. And look, if you're looking to wet your whistle, ignite your curiosity, then check out the poddy we recorded with them back in July. Laden with wisdom, all about like do's and don'ts of hiring and like how to create the perfect job description. You will love it. Yeah, but I love the way you've kind of thought of that in terms of these three pillars. And I think what I suppose I'm trying to get to is how how our listeners can almost put their hand in the wind and be like, is there wind coming in our direction? Or, what's paddling to the right waves is what I'm trying to get to. Did you think that's intuition? Like, how did you come to that decision? And what advice could you give to people who are thinking of creating a food brand? And actually, I think there's a real nuanced thing of taking a step back and saying, where's the wind or where are the waves? Like, would you say that's intuition, or how could you advise on that?
I think there's a degree of intuition for sure, but I think like any aspects of intuition, it can be trained and improved. So the great best generator of ideas is getting out there, right, and going to see how other places do business. I mean, the traditional recommendation has been, go to America, find an idea, and bring it to the UK, and in 10 years it'll be there. And I think that's true, and there's a lot of truth in that. But I don't think America is the only place you can travel to. But what's important is to get out of the house, I guess, and go and see new things, not just by traveling abroad, but when you're out and about in towns, try new restaurants, try new bars, try new drinks, and always be curious as to what people are doing, drinking, eating, buying, because I think if you keep your ear to the ground, you can sort of sense those trends early, and you've not got to be on. We weren't on the gin train at the first stop. We were probably getting on at the fourth or fifth stop of a 20-stop journey, but that was enough. So I think you've got to be mindful of putting yourself in places where you can make observations, and that means probably trying to put yourself in different places and take note. But other than that, it's waiting to see where those winds are blowing and hopping on the train and not worrying about being on the train first.
Yeah, it's so true, mate. It's what the Simon Griffiths from Who Gives a Crap says. You've got to be in the water to catch the wave. Well, as you say, John, you've got to get out there and actually see it. I want to explore the word craft and purpose, because I was thinking in prep for this conversation that there's a huge surge in the word craft. So craft beer, craft chocolate, craft gin, craft has become, if you were to zoom out, it's become a bigger thing. And I really believe it's like, this is quite deep. Back in the day, like we all had a purpose. Like religion was a purpose. Then I was into a podcast with Jordan Peterson. It's like we would go to work and make tables, and like we were proud of making tables, or we would make this and we were proud of making this. And I think with globalization and like social media and the ability to be so remote, like so many sort of towns have become slightly atomized, and people have gone off in their own direction. And I think people are kind of pining for this connection and community, which is what you said. And I think craft brands or localized brand, you've got Whitby Gin, you've got Didsbury Gin, you've got so many localized brands. I think there's a kind of a pining for that. I'd love to know, what does the word craft mean to you, and how do you apply it to your daily life?
Yeah, it's a question we've asked ourselves over the years. Obviously, the word craft is in our brand name and in our business name. Craft Gin Club and actually Craft Clubs is the name of the legal entity. So it's a word we've always used and always wanted to associate with our business, but it is a word, as you've alluded to, that doesn't really have a very formal definition to say what is and what isn't craft. So to a certain extent, it is something that sort of has to resonate with you personally, and it can mean different things to different people. But to me, craft has always been connected to the idea of size, or actually the lack of size. But that can manifest itself in different ways. So a craft gin that has a regional focus is constrained by that regional focus, actually. So that's it's got that element of smallness almost baked into it. A lot of the distilleries that we work with are small distilleries. They're small businesses that produce small volumes. So it's less about their production process, which and having some definition against that says this is a craft amount of juniper berries to use, and this is a mainstream amount of juniper berries to use. It doesn't really work like that. It's about the brands and the people that make those brands, and them being, I think, relatable and understandable. And that often means the stories that we tell in our monthly magazine about the producers we work with. It's common for that to be, husband and wife, brother and sister, 2 or 3 best friends, and they're going on that sort of journey of production and craft production as a small team. And I think being able to tease that story out is something we've always tried hard to do, but because I think that is part of what makes craft. It's that sense of place, or that sense of purpose, or people that are behind a brand, rather than a specific manufacturing process or whatever it might be. And you see that in the people that have done really well in craft. So people like at Tarquin's down in Cornwall. He was one of our featured distillers back in the
He's
early
amazing, yeah.
Amazing guy, super friendly, super bright, super hardworking, and has built a really successful business. But in scaling that business, they haven't lost their sense of craft, so to speak, even though they produce much bigger volumes now. And they've been able to maintain that, I think, by having that personal connection through Tarquin, but also in all of the things that they do in their local community. They've got physical presences, physical shops, tasting rooms. So they're a bigger business, but they still have that, I don't know, that can't quite put your finger on it, craft definition. So that's craft for me. It's size, it's people, it's real people making real products for the right reasons, whether that's to celebrate the heritage of their town, whether it's to celebrate a particular ingredient or a particular style of production. It doesn't really matter, but it's having stories, real stories connected to the product that I think is my preferred way of defining craft, rather than the perhaps a more scientific approach around how long things must be aged for, what percentage of this you have to use. And you can do that with balsamic vinegar, you can do that with Italian cheese, you can do it with all kinds of food products, and I saw that a lot. I guess I've always grown up with an interest in food. Used to be a member of the slow food movement, still going, but that was a classic example of sometimes they overly focused on the technicalities of product and perhaps lost on the people that are behind them, and that's the bit that I enjoy more.
You said, and it just got my brain going, mate, is you said craft is purpose. And I think what I was saying about how I do think in somewhere along the way we've lost our purpose, kind of with social media, with people being atomized. And I think craft is a way to kind of fill that purpose again. And I interviewed a guy called David Hyatt. I don't know if you've heard of Hyatt Denim. It's he basically built a brand called Howie's, which he sold to Timberland, huge brand, and he kind of made it global. And he basically felt kind of purposeless. He didn't feel good, even though he'd sold the business. So he moved back to Cardigan in Wales, of all places, and started a jeans brand for like their local villages. But as soon as he was the craft jeans manufacturer, he found a load of purpose, and his whole thing is talking about how to build purpose brands. And the more what you said there, like craft is purpose, I think there's something really interesting in that. But then you also talked about like the technicalities and the storytelling, and I think storytelling is such an interesting place to play as a brand or a business. What would you say are like kind of the principles of telling great stories to build that connection with both, well, build the connection between the suppliers and the customers, and you almost being the conduit in the middle?
Yeah, I think we've always seen ourselves as that kind of link between the producer and the drinker. And I think one of the things we tried to do when we set out to build Craft Gin Club was ask ourselves, okay, well, what are the actual problems we're solving? And there's this the first level problem of discovery of the home drinker not being able to discover these new small producers that were coming to market. And the other side of that coin was, the small distillers not being able to reach these home consumers. And that was true, but I think we also began to think about sort of next level problems that we thought we might be solving. And that was based on personal experience. So it would always frustrate me going into supermarket. Again, it's when most people buy their booze, and the supermarket booze buying experience, I believe, is woeful. It's 1 out of 10. You go down aisle Z, you stick in a bottle of something in between the kind of nappies and the beans, and you don't really know what you're buying unless it's a big brand. So think of wine, which is perhaps already quite diffused in supermarkets. There's lots of different wines you can buy. How do you buy wine in the supermarket? Kind of I don't know, by price, by grape, by you like the name, it's on offer. You know nothing about any of those wines, where they're from, what makes them special, why they stand out, why the people make them the way they do, why the people that make them have named them what they've named them. None of that comes to life in a supermarket experience. And you contrast that with going to a small specialized wine retailer where you can go in there, you can chat to the guy for, an hour, and you come out with some wines that you're really excited to take home and taste. And we wanted to try and sort of solve that challenge, I guess. So how do you sell drinks en masse, but bring that shopping experience to life? And storytelling content was our chosen tool. And we were lucky in so much as when we launched the business, social media, Facebook in particular, was sort of really coming into its own, but it was still a place that you could really build strong organic presence as a brand. So we were able to work with a producer, help them build their story. I mean, we got good at storytelling, right? The first 3 people we hired into the business were content professionals. That's what they did for a living. And bring that story to life in our magazine, which was a service for our customers. And I'm a great believer that people enjoy food and drink more when they understand more about what it is they're eating and drinking. But it's also a great story for the distillers, because for the first time they'd had someone sit down, listen to their story and articulate it back to them through the magazine in a format that they could then probably take to market and talk about themselves. It gave them an interesting lens on their own journey. So bringing that to life in the magazine, but then also recognizing that actually people want to consume that content in a format style that suits them. So then bringing that printed content to life through online formats like the blog, but perhaps more importantly for our business and our business success, social media. So taking those interesting stories and bringing them to life somehow in smaller snippets, smaller sound bites, on Facebook and Twitter and now Instagram, etc., was a really important part of our success, because it allowed us to build our brand whilst talking about other brands. And that's, I think, something that is hard if we were a chocolate bar brand, it's very hard for me to go on social media every day and talk about my own chocolate bar. But as this purveyor of craft, it gave us a almost endless supply of interesting stories to tell, stories about people, stories about production, stories about place, stories about ingredients, stories about cocktails and recipes and how to elevate your home drinking experience. And we were lucky because of that. And we lent into that, and we built an audience of millions of social media followers intentionally, but also enabled by our suppliers rather than us talking about ourselves.
And then how did you get those stories to actually link to sales? Because I think that's another interesting point as a brand you've got to hop across. How did you do that?
Good question. And something we still wrestle with now is what's the right degree of out and out traditional, if you like, that's the right word, direct response marketing, where here's an offer, come and buy our product, and how much of the sort of softer, supportive marketing we should put around that. And I don't think we've ever known the answer. But in the early days, there was a belief of, if you build it, they will come, and trying to build a like-minded community of gin enthusiasts was the first thing we set out to do. And actually, before we even had a box to sell, we had a Facebook page, and we were generating content, and we were understanding if we could get people to, I guess, like and follow, or whatever the basic social media maneuvers of the day were. And what we quickly learned was that we could. And I think if you think about booze as a category, it's something that people like to talk about. It's something that people like to laugh about. It's something that people like to share anecdotes of their own life about. If people have a great bottle of wine, certainly back then, people were posting pictures of almost every bottle of wine they ever opened. But even now, if someone has a great bottle of wine or they're celebrating something special, they'll post a picture of it. Equally, if somebody goes out and has too many bottles of wine the night before, they'll post a picture about it the next day. It's just it's a subject area that's rich for social media dialogue. So for us to tell stories, but also for us to engage a conversation and build an audience and a community around a topic. And we did that in the belief that if we could position ourselves as an authority in the space, and if we could offer people a platform and content, they would reward us eventually with their custom. And that was a kind of a basic tenet of what we set out to do. We didn't know that would be the case, but quite quickly we saw that we were able to build a customer base without spending any money on marketing. And I can remember that I think the first proof of life moment was January, and we hadn't even incorporated the business yet. So we were still very much trading as a bit of a side project. And John, my co-founder, who at the time was responsible for creating a lot of our content, put together it was a tongue-in-cheek blog article about how gin makes for the perfect New Year's detox. Okay, probably against some kind of advertising rules that we wouldn't be allowed to get away with now. But back then we didn't really care. It was a bit of fun. And that blog post, the sort of listicle blog post of the time, went viral on Facebook. People were really engaging with this silly idea of having a January detox using the botanicals that you can find in gin, and how each of those botanicals were good for different things. And it was seen by millions of people in the UK, and we 10x the size of our subscriber base overnight on the back of that one article, because we were bringing people into our ecosphere, if you like, and bringing those people on that journey and converting them into customers, some straight away, some took longer. But that was a real moment of, okay, we've got some kind of product market fit. We have a market where the wind is in our sails, but also now we have a route into that market. And that route to market was social media, was content, was storytelling, was engaging with people, having fun. And we were able to build the business on the back of that kind of organic reach that doesn't exist anymore. It's gone away, but we benefited from it at the time.
Oh my God, I am so excited. It feels like Hungary is finally swimming in the big leagues. I can't believe this. It's absolutely mental. But delighted to announce that Big Fish, yes, Big Fish, are part of the podcast. Perry's been on the podcast 3 times. Listeners absolutely love it. Some of our most downloaded and cherished episodes of all time. But Big Fish are behind literally so many brands in your cupboard, in your weekly shop. Charlie Bigham, Year Valley, Tyrrell's, Clipper Tea, Goo, Rana. I mean, mate, the list is longer than the River Nile. But they also share risk and invest in brands that they really believe are a force for good. That are brands that they believe are going to be the next big thing, like Howder, the snack that gives back. But even more exciting news, Big Fish want to speak to the next wave of small challenger food and drink brands that are destined for big things, the raconteurs, the movers, shakers, buccaneering visionaries. So look, if you want to speak to Big Fish and just have a chat, get your brand in front of them, then drop me a message. My mate Louis from Local Beer, Amazing Beer, was in their office, aka La Fishbowl, last week chatting to Perry, Freddie and the Big Fish crew. So drop me a message if you would like to speak to them. Bohemi, our beloved sponsor, are helping build the fastest growing challenger food and drink brands. Look, if you're a small brand just starting out and need your first indie stockist, your first 100 stockists to wholesale, Bohemi are the platform to categorically speed that up. But if you're a big brand wanting to get bigger, Bohemi are also insane. They make field sales marble smooth, silky slick. They're just epic. Ollie's been on this podcast twice actually. They saw a 29% uplift in sales when using Bohemi to check major malt listings availability. Insane. 29% uplift by downloading an app. Insane. Lucky Saint, my boy Aaron Duff, who's coming on this podcast in a couple of weeks, he uses it to manage a team of 30 people, and Lucky Saint have unlocked 500 draft listings by using BowieMe. Look, you've got to get involved with this stuff. It's absolutely insane, and it will categorically change your life. It's just the sickest platform. I use it all the time at Islands. That is New Year's Day, or like the best thing to drink in January gin is that big wave coming. That's the wind in your sails. And I think it goes back to one of the central themes I'm picking up from you, John, is like being in the water, or catching the wind. And I think, now content, hiring your first 3 hires, I think, did you say was like 3 content marketers? Like Now that's kind of, back then, that's, most people are like, why would you do that? It's kind of, that wouldn't make sense. Do you know what I mean? Back then, I think. Whereas now most people probably have taken note from what you've done and be like, oh yeah, that is the obvious thing to do. But back then it was probably not the obvious hire, which is kind of fascinating. What did it feel like when you got your first customer?
I can remember the moment well. It first of all felt surprising. I think that was definitely the first feeling. The sort of, the peak came in to my inbox with a new subscription created alert. And yeah, the first feeling was total surprise. It was, oh my God, having come up with the sort of general concept and then begun to test our ability to, build audience and build engagement, and then actually see that turn into a customer for the first time was surprising, but then very exciting. And almost, I think, we attached far more importance to that first customer than was warranted. But it became almost totem-like for us. And he remained a customer for many, many, many years. I still think he is, which is great. But we realised very quickly that the customer in question was based in Northern Ireland, which we hadn't quite figured out that we should ship to or how to ship to. But we quickly had to then figure that out. So overnight, we expanded our footprint because 100% of our customers were based in Northern Ireland. But it was good. It was surprising. It was exciting. It was a little bit pinch yourself. But then we were on and we were into Christmas, and then sales started to pick up quite quickly from there. So he wasn't the only customer for long, thankfully.
Where were you when that first order came in? Was it like what time period was that? Was it in the run up to Christmas or?
I was sat. It was in the run up to Christmas, and I was sat having a drink with my wife and a couple of friends and our newborn. No, baby wasn't born, and my wife was pregnant. And I remember sort of telling people that I'd been, fiddling around with this gin idea. And that first email came in then, and I was sort of, showing my phone off and doing a little jig and dancing and acting like a giddy schoolboy, I'm sure. But it was good. It was a good moment.
I think, like a lot of these podcasts I do, I try to understand like how you go through the dark days, but equally like the buzz of getting new business is just, you can't beat that buzz. It's insane. What would you, I think we're maybe 8 years down the line, 2023. What advice would you give to the John who looked on his phone when he was having the drink and he saw that first order come in, with everything you know now? Like, what's one piece of wisdom you'd say to yourself back then with everything you've been through, COVID, etc.?
I think that John didn't appreciate how all-encompassing the challenge ahead would be. And I think sitting myself down and giving me, a good stern talking to, and making sure that that John understands sacrifices that are ahead, the work that will need to be put in. I think without putting that John off the journey, I guess, I think at times we've been reluctant to perhaps ask for help, or we've been late to raise money on the journey. And I think perhaps we've been guilty of underestimating the challenge that's been in front of us and thinking that we can always solve everything myself, solve everything ourselves. And sometimes actually, because the challenge is so big, the only way to surmount that challenge is to bring in other people, other resource, whether that's investors, whether that's we hired a CFO for the first time sort of 18 months ago. It's changed my life, and in retrospect, that should have been something we did a long time ago. But I think the natural response of that first John was always to think about how we could do things efficiently. And by efficiently, I mean by not spending money. And I think actually spending too much money is bad, but not spending enough money is also bad. So learning to lean into the opportunity early and bring on help early, I think in retrospect would have been good advice. And to be fair, was advice that I was given by, for example, some of our non-execs, but I didn't tend to listen to them. So getting that balance right is really, really important. That balance between not trying to scale too early, because nothing, I don't think anything good can come from spending money before you really know where you need to spend money. But not spending money fast enough or quick enough when you're able to scale can also hinder the business and in hindsight, hinder the quality of life for the people trying to build the business. So getting that balance right is crucial. How hard to press on the pedal.
Yeah, it's like I've never thought of it like that. It's like the narrative is don't spend your money for or be frugal yet forceful. I think is the narrative for founders. But what you've said there is it's a dance between knowing when to not spend and knowing when to hit the pedal on the cash to go faster. If we were to go back to the John in the pub, and we were to give you some cash, or you did have resource, like what are the one or two pedals you'd absolutely hit that you think had like a kind of huge uptick in the business?
There's so many. I think for me, it's about it was about filling in. You have to fill in the holes that are around you first, right? So as an entrepreneur or a founder, with a technology background, we were deliberately late to invest in technology because that was a field that I could, kind of handle myself. I could build a website. I could keep a website up and running. I could configure, digital marketing tools, that kind of stuff I could do myself. But there's holes around the business that I couldn't do myself. And those are the ones that are important to fill in first, I think. And perhaps we could have filled in sooner. And I'll give you an example, having hired a COO for the first time, a couple of years ago. Having someone come in with deep knowledge and understanding of supply chain and logistics meant that everything we did from the supply chain and logistics point of view got better, and that hire, more than it paid, as expensive as hiring someone in that kind of capacity is, more than paid for itself quite quickly. So when I think about perhaps the years that I didn't have that person in role because I was worried about cost of salary, in hindsight, having that person in role would have made the business better, would have made my life better, and would have been actually P&L positive, given the sort of savings that we were able to garner through supply chain optimization. So I think filling the holes in around you is important. Do that first. Understand that, getting the right. Don't always see those people as costs, because it comes with additional benefits. I think it's important to consider. It's very easy to think from a sales perspective. Okay, I hire a salesman, I hire a marketing person, I hire someone who's going to manage that channel. You can see the return quite quickly, but in other parts of the business, it's less obvious, but it's there all the same, whether it's a COO or a CFO, whatever it might be in those more support level functions. And then, let go of the bits that you've got most control over last, but don't leave that too long either. So I think, finally, thankfully, we now have a technology director, and I don't have to get my hands too dirty with things tech, but still there if I need to, I guess. Still,
and also what we talked about at the beginning of having the MBA. One of the values of the MBA is being able to see the business as its whole sum versus its individual parts. And I think even as you've scaled, one of the things I'm picking up from you, John, is you can still have those conversations in those different departments to see how the beast kind of amalgamates together. I want to talk about Stoke and Sarah Willingham, because I know you're both from Stoke.
We are.
How did growing up in Stoke make you a more formidable founder, do you think?
How did growing up in Stoke make me a more formidable founder? Well, I love Stoke. It's home. It's my hometown. I think what growing up in Stoke gave me was a sense of ambitious adventure, I guess. So as much as I love Stoke, I was always quite keen to get out and experience the world or the rest of the country. And that's perhaps driven by the fact that Stoke isn't an area that's blessed with opportunity. It's obviously sort of post-industrial. So it gave me a great grounding in life. You grow up in a very real working town, working city, but it's not somewhere I wanted to spend the rest of my life. It's home, always will be home, but it was a place that I think by its nature led you to want to explore what was around the corner. And I think that sense of wanting to know what's around the corner and the sense of wanting to try new things, that sort of adventurous ambition comes from growing up in that environment, and that's something I take into business every day. And I think I have a good tolerance for risk because of that as well. So I think to be successful in business, you need to understand risk and have a tolerance for risk and be prepared to, take one step backwards to take two steps forwards. And I think growing up in an environment like Stoke helps you understand that no matter how bad things get, they can't ever be that bad, right? Because all you really need is the people that are around you. Most of my family still live there, and I love it.
Mm. Yeah, I used to work for a peanut butter brand called, I think we've done stuff with you guys actually, Manny Life. This was years ago.
Yeah, we have. Yeah.
But I used to go up to Stoke for there was a wholesaler that's now ceases to exist, unfortunately, called Tree of Life. So I used to go up there probably twice a year, and there's definitely sort of a humbleness about, as Sarah says, Stokies, I think, which is very endearing. Yeah. So you met Sarah on Dragon's Den. I'd love to know what's one or two like insane pieces of advice she's taught you that you apply daily at Craft Gin Club. Hi guys, super quick one. So excited. Look, for years I've been badgering on about Hungry the podcast. You're probably bored to death. Thanks for putting up with me. But Hungry is also an agency, and we look after one amazing brand called Islands Chocolate. We've had a great time over the year. We've won listings at a load of wholesalers. We've got Milk and More. We've got our first grocery listing coming very soon, which is very sick. But what I'm thrilled to announce is Hungry is merging with HC Consulting. My boy Harry Clark and his wonderful team, he's an absolute G. They do brand strategy, new business and account management. But why I really love working with Harry and why we've got on so well over the last couple of months is Harry was actually the founder of the boozy isolate brand Pops. So he's been in the trenches, he's grafted his face off, he's had the sleepless nights, he's had the turmoil, he's had the triumph. He knows what it is to be a founder. He is a founder. And he's got a proven track record in grocery and out of home. Holy Moly Dips, The Gut Stuff, Savile Drinks, Remio Gelato. So if you're a brand and you're stuck, you're looking for like new business help, you're looking to scale, drop us a message. We'd love to chat. Thank you so much. Back to the old episode.
So I think Sarah, we've worked with Sarah now for several years post investment on Dragon's Den, and she's been great. She's a great mentor, great person to have on our advisory board, a great friend as well. And I think she's taught me a couple of really important lessons along the way, as well as countless pieces of sort of tactical and day-to-day advice. She's always on the end of a phone or a WhatsApp. We still meet, every month formally as part of our governance. But she would tell me that it's all about the people. I think it'd be a phrase that would come out of her mouth. And I think that's true. And coming from as an engineer, as a software engineer, it's arguably not all about the people in what I perhaps did in my first career. But once you get into the world of startups and trying to build a company, it is all about the people. And it's about hiring the right people. Not necessarily the people with the right skills, but the people with the right attitude and the right approach to work. It's about not, pardon the French, not hiring dicks. So finding people that you get along with and can get along with outside of work, or just because you sat on a desk next to them for 12 hours. But it's then having found good people, it's about making sure that, you look after those people and you treat those people as well as you can within a startup environment, and recognize that everyone's, almost without exception, trying their best to do a good job, and being cognizant of that and being aware of making sure that people feel appreciated, because they are appreciated, but sometimes you forget to let people know. And I think that's really important as well. So seeing the sort of human side of Sarah in action, she's a great person to be around. She's a great leader. She's a great helper, and understands the sort of balance to strike of I never feel like she's interfering. I always feel like she's helping, and that's a skill to learn. So people, it's all about people. It's something she would definitely say, and then she would also talk a lot about the importance of time, and the importance of time for us as founders, or for me as a entrepreneur and chief exec, and making sure that you're able to create a working balance that allows me as an individual to take enough time away from work. And that's something I've learned over the years, I think, from observing the way Sarah conducts herself. She's very good at managing her time and her calendar, and she'll tell you as much as that's her most precious resource is time. And I think understanding that what's good for Sarah is good for me and good for other people like me, really, is that time is super precious and super important, and that we should be protective of it, because there's not a lot of it to go around.
She did this with me on the podcast. She's been on twice, but she sort of did this pie chart of life.
Yeah.
and how she splits up her time. And I thought it was fascinating. And it was like, you know, she if she's been overworked in London one day, she'll go to the South Downs and just walk for like 8 hours. I was like, that's so good. But I suppose the other side of that is how do you, when you're trying to take time off the business, how do you deal with that kind of, well, at least I feel this, and I'm sure people listening feel this. I often feel a huge sense of guilt when I'm not working. I kind of think, oh God, there's some fucker out there who's working harder than me, who's going to get further ahead. I need to be working, and it's quite pathological if I'm being totally honest. Like, how do you deal with the guilt of taking time off, if that's the right way of saying it? Or do you have that guilt?
Yeah, I mean, less so now, and I think that's part of the learnings that generated over the years. But in the early days, absolutely, right. There was never any holidays, and even when there was a holiday, it would be spent working, and then you feel guilty because you're not spending time with your family, or you feel guilty because you're not working on the business. So there's a lot of guilt is a really good word, I think, that you carry around, or I certainly carried around in the early days. An understanding, Sarah is very good at helping me understand this, and you touched on some of the tools that she brings to bear to make it happen in her own life, but understanding that actually for me to be a good boss or a good leader in the business, or for me to be a good dad or a good husband at home, the things that you're feeling guilty about, actually, you know, you need to take that time for yourself, even if it's just an hour here or 2 hours here, to go for that walk, clear your head, spend some time on, you know, something that interests you or your own hobbies, or even just catching up with friends is really important for you to then be effective in those other roles. And I can think of times when, you know, this has been very stressful, when things have been going wrong, or things have been really busy, when you don't allow yourself that time, and you know, looking back, you can see that sort of wellness, or however we want to talk about it, for me as a person, is really important for me to be effective in those other important jobs that I've got in life, which is, you know, being a boss, being a leader, and being a husband and father. So loads of guilt, but I think understanding that, you know, overcoming that guilt by understanding that, you know, you need that time for yourself to be effective is a really important lesson that I've learned along the way.
Yeah, it's almost seeing taking the time off as actually being super productive for the business is quite a good reframe that I should probably apply to myself. But yeah, it's probably easier said than done. I mean,
the best ideas come on holiday, right? When you've got that time away, where the brains start sparking those ideas, those pieces of insight. You've been wrestling with a problem for a long time. The solution, you know, tends to come to you when you're taking time away from the other things. That and blue drinks. You know, if you can get a blue drink in your hand, then that always helps.
A blue drink?
Yeah, a blue drink. Blue drink. You get blue drinks on holiday, right? It's the only time anybody ever drink.
Yeah. So I hadn't thought of that. Yeah, that's no jokes. No, completely. And I think there's a thing by John Lennon, which I interviewed a guy called Rory Sutherland. He basically says, like, you need to, I don't know what the exact quote is, but like, by being idle is when all the ideas come. Like, idle equals ideas, and I think it's so true. One question I asked Sarah, John, is, and I asked this to all guests, is what is one seemingly insurmountable obstacle that retrospectively paved the way forward? And this comes from a book that I love and apply daily to my life, which is called The Obstacle is the Way. Yeah, I'd love to explore that with you, mate.
In the early days, the biggest obstacle, and kind of perhaps has always been and still remains the biggest obstacle, is cash. So we're in a business that is relatively cash hungry, right? So it's DTC, it's online, paying today to acquire a customer that you hope will pay back over a year or 2 years or whatever it might be. Every business has its own set of metrics, but that in and of itself is quite cash hungry. And we started the business without any cash, and I think we've always been rightly or wrongly, cautious about raising cash. We've never done, big VC or things like that. We've had term sheets, but we've never decided to go down that path. But that lack of cash is along the way helped us form, I guess, very tight innovation cages, we call them. It's about not asking what you can do, it's about asking what you can't do. And once you take options away, and nothing takes options away like a lack of cash, it really helps you refine and focus your overall business strategy aligned with that. So, and maybe that's to your point about the obstacle being the way. I mean, we think of it as this idea of this sort of innovation cage, or these walls that you're able to build around yourselves when the things that you don't have or seem insurmountable helps you frame the challenge and helps you direct your energies in a direction that you can succeed. So understanding what you can't do, not seeing that as a limiting factor, seeing it as a guiding factor, and making sure that you're spending your energy in directions that you can see a return or can see a result is good. And we've always been cognizant of cash all the way along our journey, and making sure that we're generating cash on the one hand before we're spending it. On the other hand, that seems obvious, but that manifests itself in things like making sure that we're focusing really hard at Christmas in the early days of the business of selling gift memberships, because gift memberships were 12 months prepaid, and that would give us cash to help fund the business in Q1. We have we launched the world's first gin bond, right? So we were the first, I think. Pretty sure the only financial product that exists today that you can get your interest paid in gin. So how do we get more cash when we need more cash? The people that we chose to invest in our business was our customers, and I think that was a brilliant moment for our business, because it, first of all, you don't appreciate your customers as much as we do now until you've gotten into that kind of relationship with them where they're actually funding your business. And I think that also turns customers into advocates when they're investors in the business as well. So, cash challenge. What do we have? Customers, great community, great relationships. Out of that came the idea for funding the business from our customers using gin. And being paid interest in gin as the sort of hook or the angle, and that worked really well. So we launched our first gin bond in 2018. We launched our second gin bond last year, and it's still been an important part of our funding mix today. So that's a good example of cash building a business and a model that didn't need cash to grow. And then when eventually we did need cash, going out to those customers and those relationships that we've built was good. It was good, a lot of fun.
It's what you've said there, mate, is so fascinating in that there's almost two fields for creativity. One is idleness equals ideas, but the other one is this constraint. Or as you said, I made a huge note of this, underlined it, is innovation cages. Like when you're constrained, you're obstacle, you come up with these delicious creative ideas. In terms of the gin bond, is I find it really interesting how you create diehard fans and evangelists. And I think there's a Paul Graham quote, which is, I'd rather have 100 people who love my brand than a million people who quite like it, I think is the quote. And I think it's really fascinating. How did you turn these customers into like your word of mouth machines and these people who shout about you from the rooftops?
Yeah, I think it's something it's always been core to our mission, is to create those super fans, if you like. how have we done that over the years? I think a few levers that we've pulled on. One was being obsessive about customer service and customer experience. In the early days of the business, John and I, those two founders, we still did customer service tickets, and we did customer service tickets for probably a good couple of years after the point where we probably didn't need to. And I think talking to the customers and understanding the customers' needs and pain points when things go wrong, which is generally when people get in touch with customer service, was super useful, super important. So understanding the customer, talking to the customer, but then going above and beyond when something goes wrong. I think recognizing that in a continuity business like ours, it's quite hard to win a customer in the first place. Having won that customer, you better do everything in your power not to lose them. So great customer service has always been important, and we see that, still get that feedback today. That in terms of word of mouth, a good customer experience can generate great chat online. People talk about this went wrong, but then this happened, and that was amazing. I think making sure that conversation with customers that happens on a customer service channel happens more broadly online was really, really important. So making sure that the brand had an authentic voice, that people understood that behind the name Craft Gin Club, there was real people and a real business that cared about customers, but also cared about the suppliers and distillers that were coming onto our platform. So being real in the early days as people, not just Craft Gin Club, but there'd be John and John, and we would go out and we would take pictures and we would share pictures, and we would allow people to look behind the curtain, if you like, of the journey we were going on, help people feel like that they were part of that journey long before they formally invested in the business, but also then enabling those same customers that we were speaking to on customer service channels, that we were having a relationship with through content and through social media, and being authentic, not being ourselves, but then allowing them to talk to each other is also a really important part of the community that we've built. So something like our Facebook group, I think there's 40,000 of our customers in that group that talk about nothing but gin and Craft Gin Club. And I think that there's almost safety in numbers, if you like, rather than you as a customer having a relationship with the brand. You've got a relationship with the brand, but also a relationship with all these other people that like or love that brand. And I think that allows people to move from that, I guess, more transactional relationship to something that lends itself to sort of almost like being a fan, authentic and caring about customer experience, and building a platform for people to share that experience together has been really important.
And how much did you raise from the gin bond?
Oh, I think the first one we did about, if I remember right, it was about 1.6 million, and then the second one was a little over 3. So, by far, the majority of funding that's gone into the business has come from our customers. And then
do you pay them? How does it work? So they get like a bottle of gin a month, or
you can choose to take your interest. So it's a debt-based product. So you can choose to take your interest in cash or gin, or a mixture of both. And people do. Roughly 50% of interest we pay is in gin, and roughly 50% is in cash. So it's a nice way for the business to fund itself, but it's also a nice way for our customers to get closer to us as a brand and actually get a good return on their money too.
It's so clever. I want to talk about focus because I've got like a very scatty brain, so kind of asking for a mate here. But I know you guys, again from another article you wrote, because I think you'd created something called the Bubble Club at one point. Which was a what? If I'm right, I'm saying like a wine. Yeah, may she rest in peace. And if I'm right in saying So what you said is focus is crucial. Early in the company, we launched a second club for sparkling wine lovers called Bible Club. Internally realised the start is an entirely new company. We had the same resources. Long story longer, it was a distraction. Now, and I watched, I think that article was like 2016. Now, am I right in saying you're moving into rum? Like there's a rum club coming.
Yeah. So circle.
Yeah. So what I find interesting, fascinating is focus is a really interesting thing, because if at some point you need to be super laser focused, otherwise you're gonna run around like a headless chicken. Part one. Part two is if you stay too focused, you eventually you don't reinvent, or you don't find those new waves or those new waters. And the fact that you've had the Bubble Club, which, as you said, makes you rest in peace, and then you now have the Rum Club, which is that up and running now? Or soon to be?
We just shipping our second rum box as we.
Oh, sweet!
As we speak. So yeah, it's out there.
Amazing. So I almost think like focus is like being in cycling in the velodrome. You've got the slipstream. I think when you're super focused, it's like going around that person, and then at some point you need to pull your head out and like create something new and go past. But I'd love to know, like, what is your definition of focus first, and then second, like, how do you say no to opportunities that are like to mouth-watering opportunities?
Yeah, I mean, focus is the kind of crux of good strategy, isn't it? So making sure that you focusing or concentrating your limited resources as a startup on the one or two single biggest opportunities or challenges that are solvable is really, I think, core to how we think about growth and strategy here at Craft Gin Club. So when we started the business, we envisaged a broader church, frankly, having launched continuity products, a subscription product in gin. We envisaged that we would launch similar products or clubs in similar verticals. So we started with gin. The next one we tried was Bubble Club, which is great. 2 bottles of sparkling wine. Magazine told you all about the wines, where they're from, who made them, interesting snacks, all that kind of fun stuff. But what we quickly found was that the opportunity in gin was bigger than perhaps we thought and anticipated. So making sure that we could concentrate what was still a really small business on that big opportunity was the right decision. It was a tough decision because we had to kill something that we'd sort of spent time inventing and coming up with a brand and building customers and audience and all that kind of stuff that we'd done for Bubble Club. But it was the right decision for the business at the time. And I think demonstrates perhaps something else that I think we've always tried to do as we've built our business out is to, not be afraid to make mistakes and not be afraid to change our mind, and not get overly attached to a way of doing things just because that's what we've been doing. Being wrong at it and changing your mind and growing back on decisions is an important part of the job, actually. So Bubble Club went into the bin, but then alongside that, I think what happened next was that we were right. The gin train, really began to take off, and then lockdown came along, which was, fair to say, a good time to be in direct consumer booze, because the whole country was locked up at home and looking to replace their nights out with elevated nights in, and we were there to do that. So, having gone through a few months of worry, will the supply chains hold up? Will we be able to get product out to customers? All that stuff. And we quickly realised that so it was difficult for the country, but for our business, lockdown was a huge tailwind. what we didn't quite appreciate at the time is that it also led us into a bit of a false sense of security. So we were seeing lots and lots and lots of demand, and all we could do was keep up with the growth of our core proposition. It probably meant having put that kind of diversification piece to bed for a while when we closed Bubble Club. We were then too late to visit, or we were too late. You're never too late. We were later than perhaps would have been ideal to revisit that. Okay, what comes next? Question, which following lockdown, we're now addressing, and we're super excited to, I guess, take our concept and our brand into new directions. New categories is one, and rum is something we've been testing over the summer, but we've also got tests in vodka. We're doing something in whiskey that's coming out soon together with Whiskey Magazine. We've got a test in cocktail box test, looking at running a non-alcoholic box test in January. So lots of experimentation at the very sort of front of our innovation funnel, if you like, around category, but also looking at channel. And we've now got a small team that looks at how we bring the brand to life in non-direct to consumer channels, so retail. So we've recently won a listing with Oliver Bonas, with John Lewis, with Harvey Nicks actually came in today, which
amazing.
Is all listing, yeah. But a really nice name. So this idea of having built a brand that has authority in the space, how do we then use that brand and that authority to bring products to life in retail type channels? So that's exciting, but also then looking at how we can access markets beyond the UK as well. And we've got a test going live, I think, in the next couple of weeks for our advent calendar, which is our kind of hero non-subscription product, if you like, will be going out and available in European markets as a sort of test of that avenue of expansion as well. So having done a really good job of focusing, we probably then spent too long focusing, and we're a bit too late than I think I would have liked in hindsight to that what comes next question. And that's always the challenge, right? It's finding that balance of you're small, you're a startup, you have limited resources, you have to focus, and focusing all of your energy on the one most profitable opportunity is, I think, how you create value. But then making sure that, if that works and you grow, you're cognizant of what comes next, because most of those opportunities will be limited in nature to some degree. So, there's only so much you can do in gin with one SKU in one market. So yeah, it's exciting. It's perhaps the most excited I've been about the business in a long time, actually, just because we're now getting to play in new products, new categories, new markets, all of which is new to us. So we're learning again, and that's the fun part of business, actually. I think, where you're sort of getting out there, you're trying to devise experiments, you're coming up with tests, you're getting some results, you're changing your mind quickly, and hopefully successfully before landing on some kind of product market fit in something that sits outside of, but alongside what we've built in gin.
Yeah, it's fascinating, your answer, John. It's almost like you need such a relentless focus to get the business model of subscription working, and once you've got that working, then you can apply it to different categories, and then that's where it's almost what you're doing, and it's kind of what we've been talking about the whole conversation is you've caught the wind in one boat. It's like, can you catch it in other boats, and / where is that wind? I'd love to know. You said craft is purpose, like, or a part of craft is purpose. I'd love to know, like, what is your purpose? If we were to, like, I don't mean this in a weird way, but like go into your soul. Like, what gets you out of bed? Like, what pushes you through the headwinds? We've talked a lot about tailwinds, but there's a lot of headwind in business. Like, what is your why? Like, yeah.
Personally,
yeah, personally level, for you,
I think what has always excited me throughout my career also before my career is building things. Whether that as a kid and being obsessed with playing with Lego, or then more latterly learning to write software and build software and turning that into an engineering career, and then a technology career. It was always the idea of building something that excited me, but also understanding how things are built. So, as an example, I love to cook. I love to be in the kitchen because I really like to understand the process of how yummy things are made, right? It's great to sit down and have a delicious meal, but actually understanding what makes it delicious is what really excites me. So it's building things, but also understanding how things should be built and bringing those two, I guess, passions together in to the field of entrepreneurship is great, because that's what entrepreneurship is all about, really. It's about building something, even though you don't know what it is you're building, and you kind of learn along the way. So what excites me is how do we every day build the next story of our house, which is Craft Gin Club, whether that's people, whether that's process, whether that's product, all of that works together. Help build the next rung to the ladder, or the next level to the house. And I think that ties back to, I think, what I wanted to achieve out of an entrepreneurial career, as well as, that sense of independence and freedom is having, built something that will exist beyond my involvement and beyond my time in the business. Long after, I've retired, you can sit there and say, yeah, we built that. And that, I think, would be a nice place to be when I'm in that rocking chair, in the retirement home a few years down the line, having looked back with a sense of accomplishment on a career, which to me means having built something real and tangible. It's created jobs, that creates opportunity, that's created fun and enjoyment for customers, all that good stuff. But it's that sense of building.
It's, I think, almost kind of in parallel to the genesis of the gin revolution in like 2009, 2011, was this kind of fascination with the word entrepreneur, and like being a founder became suddenly very romantic. And pre that, well, when I was at university, it was like go and work in investment banking, and that would be like the best job, go in the city, Wolf of Wall Street, all that shit. But then now the kind of the thing is founder, and what I spoke with William Chase, who's the founder of Tyrrell's Crisps and Chase Distillery, the gin. They did gin, yeah. Well. And he's a super interesting guy, and he taught me something. And what you've said here, John, completely builds onto this. It's like, if you actually take away the word entrepreneur and say you've got to be a builder, suddenly not everyone in the university hall is going to put their hand up and say I want to be a builder, because that's what it is. It's brick by brick, day by day, and you're actually building something. It's not this sort of romantic thing. And I think there's something in that about being a builder, and yeah, I don't know exactly what it is, but there's a lot in that. Few more things I want to explore, then we'll wrap this up. But I'm absolutely loving this, mate, and yeah, learning so much. So we've talked a lot about the kind of the hard days, this tailwind and stuff. I'd love to dig into subscription D2C businesses, because I don't know bugger all about it, and I know a lot of brands listening to this are actually coming from the other way. They start in retail, then want to build out D2C. What I know, there's like CAC and LTV and all this stuff, but what are some of the absolute must-dos when trying to build a successful subscription business, would you say?
I think it starts with the product, and I think understanding what makes a product in subscription work. I think subscription requires obviously a deeper commitment from the consumer when they're signing up for a continuity product, even though in our case, we don't tie people into any minimum period. It's very easy to cancel your subscription. It's still more of a considered purchase than just buying a box of gin. So there's got to be something that you offer in exchange for that deeper level of commitment. And as you know, ticking as many boxes as you can is obviously good, but things that we've always thought about was, okay, value for money. And do people get more for their money because they buy from us on subscription than if they were to go out and spend that money piecemeal online or in the stores? So our product has a retail price point £45. The value of goods in the box, retail equivalent is often £75. So it's really good value for money. I think that's important. I think giving people access to something that they otherwise couldn't get access to is another good reason to subscribe. So Netflix, for example, get you to subscribe to it because that's the only way you can watch one or two of their big hit shows. For us, a lot of the gins that we bring into the UK market, you can't get anywhere else, right? So this month's gin is from Mexico, Contessa, amazing gin. Not in the UK market. We've gone to Mexico, we've sourced it, we brought that over for members. The only way you can get that gin as a UK gin drinker is by being a member of Craft Gin Club. So that idea of access is also super important. I think the idea of curation and understanding what customer pain you might take away there is also important. So in our world, we're being that gateway of quality, right? So for a lot of customers, and I think for myself, right, I love cheese. I find cheese shops overwhelming. I find a subscription box from the Cheese Society amazing. Why? Because they send me, half a dozen cheeses, all the right size, with the information that I need to bring that tasting experience to life. But they've done the hard work of choosing them, curating them, putting together in a package that makes sense. And that's what we do with our box. We've got that gateway of quality, which is also really important. And then the fourth element for subscription that we rely on, that I think is perhaps underappreciated by people that don't know our business, is the element of surprise and self-gifting. So it's a very different, I think, psychological process to go through to walk into a shop, choose a bottle of gin for yourself and take it home, as it is to sit at home, wait for a parcel to arrive that you don't know what's in there. And all of our members get their parcels over the same day or two. So when these boxes arrive, it's a big event in the ginosphere online. People get super excited. And the positive feedback that we hear the most from our customers is that it feels like Christmas 12 times a year. Mm-hmm. And that concept of excitement, of surprise, as adults, how often do we get gifts this day and age outside of Christmas and birthdays? Rarely, right? So you've got this almost gift to yourself or that someone's bought for you coming every month. You don't know what's in there. It's super excited. Broadly you're going to like it because it's going to be gin, but you have no idea what gin, what cocktail we're making, what snacks are in there, what country it's from, what makes it unique. And then it lands on your doorstep and you get to sort of that unboxing moment that people really love, and then that sharing moment online that people really love. And you can't buy that. You literally can't buy that, right? You can't go into the shop and pick that up off the shelf. And we deliver that through Craft Gin Club experience. So being good value for money, being that gateway of quality, providing access to things that you can't get anywhere else, and adding that sort of moment of magic in the month through surprise and delight is I think what makes not just our subscription model, but almost any successful subscription model will have some of those elements to them.
What is the process of sourcing the gins to stay ahead of the curve? Like, that to me sounds bamboozling, right? Because you said you got 12 boxes a year. Like, that's a lot of new gins to keep it fresh. I know you could probably, not rinse and repeat, but you could have a cycle. But I'd love to how are you getting these gins and how are you finding these amazing gins with stories, etc.?
It's a tough part of the job. it is actually a tough part of the job, but it's an enjoyable part of the job. So we probably taste, I would say, 400 gins a year come through Craft Gin Club offices from all over the world, and there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of distilleries just in the UK alone. So there's not a shortage of producers out there. Our job is to, I think, gather those gins into one place. We then taste those gins as a group, and everybody in the business is responsible for joining a gin tasting team and taking their turn on our gin tasting panel. We taste those gins blind, so that we don't know what the gin is or where it's from. It's a liquid, and then we reveal gin and the brand, and we judge a gin based on quality of the liquid, but also the quality of the story that sits behind it. Right? We want to find gins that are interesting, that are made by real people with real passions, rather than the more sort of faceless brands that can be out there in the booze industry. That's nothing wrong with those, but that's not what we're looking for. We're looking for great gin, hopefully with good or interesting branding, but with real interesting stories behind them. So everybody tastes that. There's then the whole second filter process that I get more closely involved with, but because it's important not only to choose good gins, but also to choose a good year of gins. We have 6 months of gins, 6 gins a year from the UK, 6 gins a year from the rest of the world. We want a nice spread of countries, of styles, stories that help weave a really interesting tapestry of drinking experiences throughout the year. And that's something, we think about a lot. So it's not just choosing great gin, it's choosing a great calendar of gins that makes experience of being a Craft Gin Club member interesting and varied and fun.
Where else is gin massive? Is the gin movement ubiquitous around the globe, or is the UK leading the like if you were to go to, I don't know, Germany or Poland or
So I think the biggest gin drinking market in the world, correct me if I'm wrong, someone might, by volume anyway, is the Philippines.
Really?
They do, mental. Yeah. They've got a penchant for a particular brand of gin that not the best, but they drink a lot of it. But in terms of the kind of, I guess, craft gin boom, if you like, that we've seen in the UK, then we are seeing or have seen similar in Spain. We're now seeing similar interest in Germany, Austria, Italy, Switzerland, Holland, Belgium, Denmark. These are all places where lookalike businesses have sprung up. So, Craft Gin Club in Germany, albeit under a different name. Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, copycat businesses have sprung up. And America is also catching on to the gin trend. So I think, whilst a lot of the growth has happened in the UK market now, there's still lots of growth left for gin as a category globally, which I think is excited. And in a lot of those countries, it's being fueled by the same thing that fueled the growth in the UK. That is local producers bringing local products to market that people appreciate first and foremost locally. And that is then lending itself to a sort of springboard effect, really, as people then get into gin more broadly and look to broaden their horizons and taste experiences. So yeah, it's great, and it's a great time to be in gin, and will be for a number of years yet. And how we access that enthusiasm in overseas markets is a super interesting business challenge, but also a big opportunity, right?
Couple more things, John. So, and this is just kind of completely following my own curiosity, because I know you said you love food, and I mean, food is kind of, I live to eat, kind of like it's my favorite thing in the world. What are some of your favorite sort of restaurants in London, and what you said about these little surprises, I thought was delicious, because I think some of the best restaurants, they provide you with little surprises that you don't expect, and it just makes the whole experience better. I mean, there's Paul Ainsworth down in Cornwall. At the end of the meal, he gives you like a selection of chocolate and coffee. I was like, it's those little things. I'd love to know, like, what some of your favorite like restaurants.
So I guess I like different styles of eating experiences. So we recently moved offices. So we've just moved into a new office over in Clerkenwell, and there's a street, a couple of streets over. Is it Whitecross Street? There must be 50 food stalls, sort of street food stalls either side. I can spend a happy hour just wandering around there before even buying anything. And I love that kind of eating experience where it's, you're discovering new dishes and weird and wonderful things that you wouldn't necessarily eat. But I'm also a sucker on the other side of that same coin for sort of, tradition. And I love a trolley, right? So, I love a restaurant where there's a cheese trolley or a dessert trolley, or that whole kind of, almost formal dining experience where you're really taking your time over a meal, and you're sort of going through the gears and going through the courses. Can be a lot of fun as well. So I like both. Both ends of the scale I enjoy. I think in London we're blessed because there's just so much good food around, right? There's so many good places to go and eat, whether you're eating sort of Korean or Japanese or French or Argentinian or you name it, it's there. And there's a variety of styles of restaurant to access those cuisines as well. So you can spend a fortune or you can spend a little. So it's a good place to eat. But yeah, if you take me somewhere with a trolley, I'll be happy.
Trolley and you'll be happy. Final. Well, I've actually got two more questions. So I ask this to all guests, but what is one truth that you believe that most people would probably disagree with you on?
People don't change.
Because?
I think one of the things that people disagree with me a lot on, I think you can change. You can change people's skills. You can help people become better at their job. I've very rarely seen or been able to see people change their fundamental nature or personality. So sometimes, I'll give you an example. If someone's not right for a job or a role or for a position in the team, not because of their skill set, but something about either their personality or the way that personality works with somebody else in the team. It's not necessarily a case that there's anything wrong with either personality. It's just that personalities don't go together. I think quite often the received wisdom from people around me is that, that we can somehow affect change in that person or change in that behavior. And that is probably perceived wisdom, but I don't tend to agree with it. I think people are people, and it's much more important to find a role or a function or an area that people can succeed in as themselves, rather than to try and put people into a place where to succeed they need to change who they are.
I'd never thought of that ever. I think you're right. It's like how the narrative is, how do we upskill this person and try and fit a square into a circle?
Yeah, I mean, you can teach someone Excel, you can teach someone sales skills, but you can't choose a negative example. If someone's lazy, you can't make them unlazy. And that doesn't mean that a lazy person can't be good in business or good in a job. They can be, right? Some of the best software engineers I ever worked with were great because they were lazy, right? They solved things quickly. They used automation. so that things were done for them, so they didn't have to do things. It's you know, there's places for all kinds of people within teams and within businesses, but understanding that, I think getting people into a position or a role or an area where they can thrive as themselves is much better than the alternative of trying to sort of fit people into a role that perhaps they're not suited for.
I think, doesn't Bill Gates have a quote which is like, if I need something done, I'll ask the laziest person. I think it's something like that. Final question, John.
Yeah.
I think that's a Bill Gates thing. It's like, just, they'll find the fastest way to get there if they're the laziest.
That's right.
What's the best most memorable gin and tonic you've ever had? Like, what's your favourite gin and tonic?
Not supposed to have favourites. It's like asking me what my favourite child is, but I often tell people I've got a favourite gin for every hour of the day. You tell me a time, I'll give you a gin, but I'm going to give you an answer, because there's one gin that I think stands out in my memory because of the gin we served on Dragon's Den. So we served a gin called Blue Bottle from Guernsey, which is a lovely gin, really spicy, lots of sort of cubic pepper and cardamom, but also bottled quite strong. I think it's bottled at 47% or something. So it makes a real punchy gin and tonic that really stands up to not only tonic, but also dilution, right? So we were conscious of, we're going to go into, we probably overthought this a little bit. We're going to go into the den. We're going to have gin and tonics on a little trolley. They're probably going to melt, right? They're going to be out there in the lights for however long before they get to taste them. So we wanted a gin that would stand up to that dilution and still carry the wow factor. And he did. They loved it. It went down very well. We were last on, so it was the end of the day's filming for the Dragons. I think they were grateful that we came in with a gin and tonic rather than being a coffee subscription.
And why did you pick that gin versus any other?
I think because it had a really strong flavor profile,
right?
Really strong ABV. We knew it would work well under light, so to speak. It was also just a favourite of ours. No, awesome. And a member's favourite.
Well, John, like, I've absolutely loved that. I've just bamboozled with new wisdom. I think the central learning from you is this ability to kind of use data on what's going on around you, married with your intuition, to see where the wind's going and kind of move with that. And I think it will help so many listeners. So yeah, thank you so much, mate. Really appreciate it.
Good. My absolute pleasure. It was good to chat. And hopefully we'll see each other in person at some point.
Oh, no, definitely.